Hello, welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is the show where I get to talk about sports, I get to talk about business, and I get to talk about everything in between. Today, my incredible guest, I have Adam Salazar. He's the CEO and founder of PlayerPager. Adam, how you doing today, man?
I'm great. I'm on for the love of sports, so no complaints.
Honestly, I have to assume your career is peaked at this point, right? Is there really how much higher could you possibly get?
I mean, it's definitely downhill from here after
Yeah,
this morning.
sorry,
Yes,
man. I'm
yes.
sorry. I wish I
All
did
right.
this a little later in your career. That way, you could kind of talk to your grandkids and grandkids. But I don't know, man. I think this is downhill. Let's sell our Adam Salazar stock while we still can. No, I'm kidding. Of course,
Right.
excited very much to talk about the player pager, what you guys have been able to build over the last half a decade now, if I'm not mistaken. So you've been doing a lot of cool stuff. The app is available now. It's just such a cool project, and I'm very very grateful that I get to have you on. Shout out to our good friend Ross for doing what he does, of course. And I'll make sure again you'll give me all the links and everything so people can check out the website. They can download the app. They can send it to their kids. They can send it to their friends who have kids. The whole thing. We'll get into it. But Adam,
Absolutely.
first question I have for everybody for the love of
Mhm.
sports is why do you love sports so much?
Yeah, great question. I've
Thanks.
spent some time thinking about this, and you know what? I've decided that the reason I love sports has changed. When I was a kid, I just loved the passion and the winning and rooting for a team. And I remember crying when the New York Rangers lost to the Islanders and the Mets. And when I was a kid, I was a huge Dodger fan from like my father's Brooklyn Dodger connections. And the Jets. So I cried a lot as a kid, I feel
Yeah, a
like,
lot.
for losses. And so when I was a child, it was just the unbridled passion for a team and rooting for players and just wanting to win. Right. But like as I've gotten older and as I've worked in sports media and stuff like that, I maybe jaded is a word as far as like, professional teams and stuff like that. I think now I really love what I love the most about sports is like the personal stories and I've been around the high school athlete a lot, getting scholarships. So like, I really just love knowing a kid or seeing a kid who's come from high school, no scholarships, gone, playing in the NCAA, playing in the professional leagues, in the NFL. Like, I just love the story. So I find myself rooting more for individual kids and athletes. Obviously, I still have my teams. I'm a Mets fan. I'm a super Syracuse alum, so I root Syracuse. But I think that it shifted to more personal stories from just the traditional root for my team, root for the laundry to win.
Yeah, and that is one thing. I'm, as you can see, wearing my Mets sweatshirt as we speak. So of course I'm going to root for the laundry every time. But it is true, like how much, especially over the last, I would say 5 to 10 years. Like it used to be the superstars. What were they doing? We kind of know what Michael Jordan's up to. We know what Kobe Bryant's doing. We know what Shaq's doing. We know what Joe Montana's doing. But now you can kind of find out what like the backup offensive guard is, what
Mm.
their story is because social media and the internet has allowed us to do that because video has become such an impactful medium that all of these guys that have real legitimate stories, you get the opportunity. And I obviously love the stories, right? I got into podcasting by interviewing Olympic athletes on their story and path to the games. If you want to hear incredible stories, I mean, what those men and women do, A, for the United States, but B, what they go through to get there, it's just absolutely electric. And it's just so impactful hearing those stories. And we have all these opportunities to do it now, right? And it's not difficult, thankfully for this medium, for many others as well. And I guess that's kind of where and I think it is funny again, you bring up stories and we're going to talk a little bit about your time in the film industry, right? You spent some time with NBC, you did some stuff with PBS, right? That's some of those
Mhm.
documentaries and we'll get to that in a second, but I guess with that, did you get into the film industry because of sports, or was it just the story aspect? And I guess when did those kind of lock their hands together and say, Adam, you could have been doing this the whole time. Where you been?
Yeah, I did not get into entertainment show business because of sports. I actually had decided to move to California, and I got a job at Disney Studios getting coffee on like crappy sitcoms,
Love it.
right? Like, and I love those sitcoms. I don't mean to speak badly. I
Well, which
love the people I
sitcoms
worked with.
was it?
So my first job was a Henry Winkler pilot called Monty for what was then a fledgling Fox network like not Fox News,
Yeah.
Fox Channel 5 network. And Henry Winkler played a Rush Limbaugh type kind of buffoonish right wing character who had a radio show. And I loved it. I loved everyone there. It was a great experience. It didn't do well. It was his return to TV after Happy Days, excuse me. And it was like my first entry job. And there were great people on that show, great people in that cast as well that went on to huge fame. Jack Black was in there. David Schwimmer was in there. Like, there was a ton of people. Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. All these, like, before they were famous folks. But so then I worked for Disney Studios for like 5 years in LA, just working my way up the production ladder. Decided to move back to New York City. I'm from Manhattan originally. Ended up getting a loft in Brooklyn, shooting an indie film, like a 1970s Shaft and Superfly meets Starsky and Hutch called Fat Cats, which was an epic journey in my life. And then I got frustrated with like the distribution, portion of that journey, and realized that I didn't have the budget for the marketing and the film festival submissions. And I was like, man, this is a TV show and everyone liked it as much as they seem to like this indie film, I would have sold it. So then, in my infinite wisdom and partial naivete, I was like, I'm going to go out and just start following high school athletes in Brooklyn, New York, playing high school football, because I know there's great stories, and I know that our Brooklyn people are sending athletes to major football schools every year on scholarship, but everyone thinks we only play basketball here. So that's when I started really like loving the personal story of it all, because I got to know these kids that are just, they're great kids. They're working, they're super hardworking. A lot of them are up against a lot of odds stacked against them. And, they're just undaunted. They just keep working and keep trying to, get their grades right and get exposure for scholarships. And, a lot of them don't, but it's the dream, it's the carrot that keeps them, on the right path and growing. And hopefully they'll go to college or, do something better with their lives as opposed to just,
mm-hmm.
messing around in the streets or whatever. So that's kind of how I ended up there. And that's really, I think, was the beginning of like kind of turning that I was more interested in the personal stories.
Yeah. And I think that's it. And we're seeing, I mean, you were at the forefront of an entire industry, essentially, right? Like, we're seeing Last Chance U.
Yeah.
We're seeing,
Right.
all these like series documentaries that kind of follow along different people and players. I think QB1 is another one where they follow some of those, top high school recruits out of, specific states, which is incredible. And so you were literally doing this. You have already done, and now just because of the distribution, the thing that you hated the most, now you can go to a streaming service and they're just like, a show,
Right.
here's $100 million, go make it for us, right? Like, you were just a little ahead of your time, I guess.
It's
it
funny.
worked. It all worked out. You're here now. You peaked, so it's cool.
I made it to the show. Absolutely. I definitely was ahead of my time in that regard. And I love those shows. Last Chance U, QB1. I'm a fan. I watch them all. I think they do a great job. Friday Night Lights too. Like, all those shows, I love them. I was a weird thing because I was dealing with the New York City public schools. So eventually the New York City public schools kind of realized that there was somebody with a camera filming them and putting their kids on TV. And then they were like, hang on, no, people can't sell ads against our kids. Like, so, and I was like, okay, I totally get it. So they ended up saying, you can do this. We like what you're doing. We appreciate that you're giving good publicity to our programs and our kids, but you have to do it on the New York PBS network. So I was great. So we ended up doing 8 seasons of programming on a couple networks, MSG Varsity and Channel Pix 11, and then predominantly after that on the New York PBS station. So it was great. It couldn't really go beyond that without a ton of New York bureaucracy navigating all of that, Department of Education and stuff like that. So, but it was great. And I was able to I had to get my own sponsors as well. So found myself selling sponsorship packages, which I had no experience in, but was able to bring, U.S. Marine Corps and Under Armour in and some smaller local brands as well. So yeah, I loved it. And I agree, ahead of my time.
Yeah. If only, man. If only. That would have been kind of cool. Netflix existed back then, right? But I think it's just a really cool, again, just a kind of a tie into, what we're going to get to in a second with PlayerPager, but just how you were able to see the fact that there is this industry, not industry, that's a bad way to say it, but there's this whole, I mean, all of these football players coming out of New York City that we don't really pay attention to too much. Like, you're always thinking they're coming from the South. It's Texas, it's Florida,
Hmm.
it's California, it's, some of these, the North Carolinas of the world. But New York and New Jersey, it's a hotbed for football and for basketball. Like, if Rutgers only was able to keep 1/10 of the amount of talent, I went to Rutgers, of course, so that's kind of why I'm always salty about it.
Yep.
But if they were able
Yep.
to keep 1/10 of the talent that came out of this area, be an absolute national powerhouse, and it wouldn't even be a
Powerhouse.
question. I mean, you see all the time, all these kids. Granted, I can't really blame them. If you're from New Jersey or New York, you want to get the hell out of the cold weather. So I can't really blame those kids, but we could hopefully figure out one of these days how to keep some of them home. Man, Rutgers, that would be kind of fun, but it is what it is. So I guess with that, like with that show, with that documentary, as you were saying, your naivete kind of took over and allowed you to do something like this. How did it, I mean, 8 seasons, it fared pretty well. Like, how did that help you in your journey up to where you are? Like, learning these stories and understanding to get the wheels turning on something down the road in the future that might come, which obviously did. It's PlayerPager, which we'll get to. But how did those wheels start to turn further than just let me continue to follow these kids with incredible stories around and kind of show the world what else New York City is capable of?
Yeah, when I was in that world, and I was like fully immersed in that world. I was going to practice. I was going there early before games, traveling like to Staten Island because I was with Canarsie High School here in
Mhm.
Brooklyn, which is a very storied public school football program for those that know. They had some tough times. They're certainly coming back, but I got to know the kids. I got to see firsthand the challenges that these kids had, and there was a lack of information for these kids and a lack of opportunity for them to promote themselves. That was not in any way, shape, or form an indictment of the coaches that were around these kids. Those coaches are working their ass off and they love those kids and they do everything they can for those kids for the most part. But New York is not a high school town. New York is a pro town. Like, New York's not even a college town.
Mhm.
And so high school is really far off the radar. But what I realized once I plugged into that community is the passion that's in that community, even though there's not a lot of media coverage and the local newspapers kept scaling back their high school coverage. Years ago, there used to be a game of the week on Channel 11 of high school, public school, PSAL football. And, slowly but surely, budgets got tighter and they scaled back, and there's virtually no high school coverage in New York these days. It's crazy. So, but these kids were looking to me as if I had information for them just because I had a camera in my hand and I was like an adult, right? And they thought I could, give them advice about training or recruiting or, how do they market themselves? And it really bugs me that there were some apps and websites at the time that were out there that are offering these things to kids, selling them the dream that we can help you get recruited, we can help you, get exposure, but it's going to cost your parents a couple $1,000s, generally speaking, if not more. And I mean, it's just not fair. Like, it's just not an option. Parents don't have that money, and even if they do, it's a lot of money to plunk down. That's probably not going to be very effective. So I had in my head for a while, like, man, it would be great if there was a place, an app, a social network that kids could plug into for free and get support and get mentorship. And then one of my friends here, a guy by the name of Deval Ellis, he was a Brooklyn football player, walked on to Hofstra University when Hofstra was playing football before they cut their program, was in the wide receiving corps with Marquez Colston. He went All-American, walked on to the Detroit Lions, or undrafted free agent, I should say, stuck in the NFL as a 5'10" wide receiver for 4 years. And he came back and was mentoring kids in Brooklyn, training and mentoring kids in actually in Canarsie as well. And so we were just kept talking about, like, how can we provide support for these kids that need it and democratize the information that there are some places that are sitting on and putting it behind the paywall. Just didn't feel right about that. And wanted our New York City kids, is real obviously where it started, but it's kind of extrapolated out. We want all kids of all sports now to be able to, learn, maximize their potential, is what we say on the app PlayerPager. We want them to maximize their potential with knowledge, virtual mentorship we give, the ability to build a recruiting resume and market yourself. So over time, we took baby steps, and built this to the place that we actually, were able to get significant investment and be able to build an app that we feel good about now. Had a few iterations that we didn't feel great about it, but these were MVP versions. Went to the world and we started, building our brand and learning. So that's when we started getting to know the kids and seeing that there was a gap in what they needed and what they were being provided.
Yeah, and I think it's because you've been able to figure out where that gap lies. I think again is why I think the app and just the company and what you're trying to do, the mission is really just help these kids understand and just put themselves out there a little bit more, right? I mean, when you and I first spoke, I have a younger cousin also by the name of Michael, and he puts up a lot of videos of himself,
Right.
training for football and getting ready and doing what he needs to do. And, I think he's 12, 13 years old, whatever it is. And it's just one of those things where, especially this younger generation, I mean, they grew up with camera phones in their hand. Like I got
Mm-hmm.
one when I, finally, freshman in high school, I think, maybe even later than that was the first one with a camera on it. So we're not as comfortable on it. Or I
A
am not.
camera.
Yeah, exactly. It was like 3 megapixels, right? So,
Yeah.
it's just interesting kind of seeing. And so I guess with that, so you kind of see all this stuff, but when does the light bulb go off and say, hey, like these kids need help. I think I can provide them that help. Let me go find a bunch of money to build all this stuff, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that's involved, I guess. At what point were you just like, this is what we want to do? As you said, there's many iterations. There's a lot of things that went along as well. At what point were you like, this is my next step? This is the next logical step in this journey of not just helping promote these kids, but really giving them the opportunity to help promote themselves.
Yeah, I was. What had happened was I got frustrated with needing to find my own sponsorship for the PBS show. I ended up bounced over to NBC and worked at NBC as a producer for about 18 months, and then got laid off there, as is the cycle that happens. I found, and then I was like, I just missed the high school world. I missed that energy. I was working on a show. I had great people. I realized I was missing that energy and that passion. And right at that time, I somehow stumbled across that you could actually purchase for about $1,000 a pre-built social network. Now, I didn't realize at first I was like, this is the answer to all my problems. It was not the answer to all my problems.
What? Are you kidding? $1,000 for an app and you're good to go?
Right. It was a desktop version and it was written in PHP. And I'm not a tech guy, but I found out quickly that PHP was a dying language. People were migrating away from that and very clunky. So, but it allowed me to actually get something live. I had offshore developers customizing it, and I knew nothing about developers and managing the development team at that point. So I was really flying blind at the point. But really what it allowed me to do was create a video of a pitch video of what I wanted to be able to deliver and tell the story in the video, which was powerful. And that allowed me to team up with a friend that kind of lost contact with, David Todd. And he got super excited when he saw the video. He saw the vision and saw the passion of what we could do for kids. And he got excited. And Dave is a finance guy, Harvard Business and Wall Street, Goldman Sachs guy for about years, and also ESPN radio guy. So he had, a unique combination of skills as well, and was able to come in and, bring financing in behind this. And at that point, we could really accelerate it and grow from a desktop version, which was in a super small beta just in New York City, to an app. Now, again, it was a very MVP version of the app, but we took another step forward, right? And we grew what we were doing, and we started to expand to Pittsburgh. He's based in Pittsburgh, and built some relationships with Pittsburgh schools. Again, stayed in only high school football because that was our bread and butter. But that was really like my moment when I realized, like, oh, there is something out there that was within reach, that I can at least start the process. And I've always been a big believer, like if once you start doing something, you move yourself out of the 99% of people who are talking about doing it
Mhm.
into the 1% of people who are actually doing it. And when you get yourself into that 1%, that's when things can happen for you, right? It's hard to make something happen if you're just talking about it. Once you start doing it, people see that you're doing it. People, hopefully it's a good project. People like what you're doing and they want to help and participate and grow with you. So, that's the threshold. Once I got to that point, I wouldn't say it's been easy. Every step of the way is hard, but it allowed us to grow and move forward. So that was the critical moment, is when the moment that I was able to move forward, find the ability to take that first step. That was the critical moment.
Yeah, I mean, how many people everybody claims they have $1 million idea, right? I think everybody does have $1 million idea. It's just you have the $1 million execution of it. I think that's the
Right.
important part, and no, nobody does. I think that's you are in that 1% that actually tried to push something like this forward, and you got the finance. You did what you need. You put your own money up, then you're obviously able to connect with a friend and find the financing to really accelerate this process. So I guess tell us about it. Like, as you were saying before, this is a way for high school athletes, and now there's a bigger swath of people that can get involved in something like this. So I guess start with what it was, and then an extra 5 years into the future, what it is now.
Yeah. So we consider ourselves a positive social network, but we're more than that. We certainly have a feed, and you can post videos and comment and like and stuff like that. But really, what we deliver is two things for kids right now. We have lots of plans to add more things, but we're trying to be small and focused. So we deliver two things. First, we deliver a daily message, a daily mentor message, which we call a Max Potential series. It's a short video that Deval Ellis, who's my guy from Brooklyn, Deval has grown from being an NFL player to being a mentor in sports. He's now one of the leads on like a Tyler Perry show, Sisters on BET. He's got 1 million Instagram followers. He does a reality show with his family. He always wanted to become an actor, in front of the camera. So he's a great example of using football and using sports to get to what he wants to be, even if, of course, he wanted to be in the NFL, but he wanted to achieve something else. So Deval's very smart guy, very passionate guy, and he's kind of our anchor of our mentorship series. So every morning when a kid wakes up, pop on their phone, get a short daily affirmation, pearl wisdom about how to think about life lessons that certainly are granular enough to apply to sports, but are also big enough to apply to life and every aspect of life. And, a lot of things are simple things that you and I would know. Choose wisely who you surround yourself with. That's our theme of the week this week. So Deval kicks it off on Monday. We have other mentors. Morgan Jones was a McDonald's All-American, great basketball player. She, has a day she does videos. We're bringing more people on board. We do some curated stuff from YouTube that we think is powerful and can, empower athletes, inspire and motivate them. Keep it all clean. We're a clean platform. So we try to kind of, what we say is we want to work on build your mental game to help you elevate your physical game. It's kind of how we pitch it to kids. Now, but that's kind of the vegetables, maybe the stuff that's good for you in our platform. What we also offer kids, which is quite frankly the bigger motivator, is the ability to build a recruiting resume, as we call it. And on your player page, PlayerPager is kind of like, honestly, it was a certain degree of what was available, URL was available, and I was coming up with the name, but it worked out because PlayerPager, I figured it would kind of harken back to the old beepers, the old pagers. And the idea, at least that's the way I spun it, that if you need to if you're a college coach and you need to contact a player, you want to find a player, or you're a member of the media or a fan, you can go to PlayerPager and find them there and contact them there. So that's PlayerPager. But if you build your player page, this is your athletic resume, and you can add your highlights, which is like the main currency in recruiting, right? Your game film. But as you were saying, your nephew films himself working out, doing drills, doing trick shots. What I knew a couple of years ago, and it's interesting because COVID came up and now it's accelerated all of it, is that recruiting is going to move virtual because kids all have phones and they love filming themselves doing sports, working out. And there's no place for kids to organize everything in one calling card, one resume to show college coaches, to show fans,
Hmm.
boys, girls, whatever. And so we've offered something where you can add your resume, where you add your highlights, your game film, and then we have a section we call Prove Your Moves, which is prove your moves to college coaches, prove your athleticism, prove why you should be considered to get a scholarship on the next level. And this is where we encourage kids to show your footwork drills, right? Show your high jump, show your vertical, show your strength in the weight room, show whatever they want to show that makes them look like a good athlete, a value add to a college team. They can put that there, and that's not out there. And it's coming, and COVID has accelerated this now
Hmm.
because college coaches, it's a dead period. They can't even go visit kids in person. So we're excited about that, and we think we help a lot of kids that were hurt, kids that lost seasons to COVID, kids that didn't get enough playing time, maybe because there was somebody better in front of them. They didn't get to play. They didn't get game film. So we're excited about that. Kids seem to be buying into it, and they're excited about that. So we feel really good. But that's like a brand new feature, really, that we just got live about 2 weeks ago. So it's still brand new to us.
Wow. Yeah, that it is such a cool concept, right? Creating that resume. And also I wanted to say, I mean, you're, dealing with like 18, 19-year-old kids. Do they even know what a beeper is or a
They
pager
do not.
is? I was gonna
I
say
mean,
it. So
yeah,
the name's kind of lost on them,
yeah,
but the people that will potentially recruit them probably have some
yeah.
understanding of what a
But you
pager
know
is.
what's
So that's
funny? I
kind of
tell you
funny.
that some kids do because they watch old movies. They watch
Okay.
movies like Juice, old movies like where there's beepers and there's drug dealers with beepers. You know what I mean? Like so, some kids are familiar with it, but a lot are certainly not.
I like
So
that.
it's
Yeah,
for the
or
old guys
shows with
like you and me.
doctors. Shows with doctors, I think, still had beepers
Right,
in it,
right.
right?
Doc says beepers as well. That's
That's
right.
about it, though. I think they've all kinda gotten rid of them naturally, but I just think the
Yeah.
concept of it and the opportunity to allow these kids to help themselves too, right? Like, if you want to be more proactive in your search for a college and a college searches for you, frankly, you can. I mean, we all have film, right? We all have a camera in our pocket that pretty much shoots like 4K at this point, whatever. So you can get that.
Hmm.
That's easy. And coaches have always watched film. It's just the fact that now it has to turn essentially exclusively virtual because of the pandemic and coaches not being able to go out. Many schools aren't playing, which is extremely unfortunate. I mean, we're seeing colleges not playing, we're seeing high schools and grade schools not playing. If there's a way to show your motivation and your work ethic and what you're trying to do, as a student athlete, I think that part is very important. And I know one thing that we spoke about, and you really focus in on high school football players, even from freshman year to senior year, you're going to have most likely that growth spurt. You're going to get significantly
Absolutely.
bigger. And to see that over a period of time allows coaches to kind of envision that story a little bit more, not just, oh, all of a sudden here's this 18-year-old kid who's now like 6'5", 250. Like, where did you come from? It's like, well, you can see where I came from. This is what I was doing. And you could kind of see that if I just got that size, I then would have the ability to make these plays and do these types of things. So I think that part of it is really cool too, to kind of see that evolution of the player over time. And again, getting kids that are even younger. I know there's a specific age we have to stop at, of course, but
Hmm.
getting kids that are younger, you can continue to see that. And it's also more motivating for them, right? Putting something out there into the world. Now there's some accountability factor involved too. So you have the motivation coming from guys like DeVal and more and females like Morgan. And then you have the opportunity that you put that information out there. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. I think I don't remember the statistic. I'm going to butcher it. So whatever, but people that write down a goal are X percent more likely to complete the goal than people that just say it to themselves. So by putting it out there, naturally you're increasing your opportunity there as well too. So I just think the platform is really awesome. I think what you guys are doing is really cool, especially obviously in the world that we're living now. It's really unfortunate, but I still think that the opportunity is there. I guess with that, what have been some of the successes that you've seen? Obviously, these are new features that just came out a couple weeks ago, so that is what it is. But what are some of the successes that you've already seen over the last few years with this app being live and allowing it to be within New York City, Pittsburgh as well? I'm sure other places around the country, it's just kind of spread organically. But what are some of the successes that have come along with it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right, and a big part of what we want to do is we want kids to advocate for themselves
Hmm.
because there's not enough time in the day for adults, coaches, parents to advocate for the kids, and it's probably more powerful for a college coach to hear from an athlete themselves directly. Obviously, if your coach is like
Hmm.
your high school coach tells a college coach, "I got a guy or a girl you got to look at," that's powerful, but the athlete advocating for themselves, taking the responsibility and being mature enough to approach a college coach to say, this is who I am. And, it's important to me that you see who I am. So I've gone through and put myself on film. Kids have responded to that, and kids really get that. Now, again, this is just brand new live. I will say that in the last couple of years, we filmed a lot of games because my background in my TV show City Gridiron came from filming games on the sidelines. I was in the timeout huddles. Like, I got really good access because I was just embedded with these schools. So I got great film and was able to help kids get scholarships because I had great looking film on them that we would put highlights together and they would be able to send to college coaches. So I've had that success on a smaller level, right, in New York at a very personal, intimate level because it was me doing the filming. But so now we're trying to expand it so that everybody can create a resume for themselves, tailor it to exactly what they do well, and feature their strengths as an athlete so that just it. And as an old expression in sports, film don't lie, right? And that really is applicable to game film. Mistake in the game film is going to show it. But the same thing counts for these workout videos, these prove your move videos. Film don't lie. If you can show, what your, bench press is, or what your vertical jump is, or what your footwork skills look like, how fast your feet move on film to a coach, that's important and that's powerful because coaches, more likely than not, will never see that from you unless they have to come to your school and see you out. That's what kids really are excited about. And it's interesting, the coaches are really excited, high school coaches are really excited about this also because they see the value it can add to their team. So we are now doing like Zoom seminars with teams to kind of tell them how this can work for them, coach them up and how they can make a resume, how they can build their brand. That's another kind of big, big element of what we're doing. We want kids to be cognizant of the brand, cognizant of how they present themselves on social media, not post dumb stuff on Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat, anything. Like, everything can get tracked back to you and you can lose the opportunity for a scholarship. So we're really focused on trying to help kids build their personal brand. And I think what kids really resonate the most with of what we're talking about is they feel like we're there to support them. Like, this is a platform. We are player first. Power to the players is our mission statement and feedback. So we're still small. We're still growing. We've been around. We've been growing. But in the grand scheme of things, we think we're still in mile one of this marathon. Like, we have a lot of growth to go. But the kids feel that, I think the kids feel pure intent on our part. And they smell the authenticity from myself, from Morgan, from our Deval, our whole team. And smell that we're authentic in our wanting to help them. And that's been our biggest victory so far, I think, just because we're still growing and we still got a lot to accomplish. So we feel great about what we've got so far.
Yeah. And you have more things in the pipeline, obviously. And one reason that we are having this conversation today is because you're helping host a combine on October 24th in New York somewhere. I can't remember the exact place. I'll let you kind of give the details. But because of these college coaches not being able to see so many of these high school athletes play in person, many of them, aren't able to play due to, restrictions. You guys decided to put on a combine for these high school athletes, for college coaches to come see them. Because when we think of college football, I watched the Bama Georgia game. I watched Clemson just kind of, put up 70 points this weekend. But there are so many other opportunities. There's many other schools. There's half scholarship opportunities. There's opportunities for these kids that normally wouldn't have the ability to go to college. Now, hey, maybe they're not going to go play in the NFL or be, one of the best in college football, but they can go get an education and utilize football as that platform and then move forward just in their lives in general, which I think is, always missed when we talk about college sports. It's like, oh, well, Duke and Kentucky basketball, Bama football. It's like, well, actually, there's like hundreds of schools out there that can allow these kids to get a leg up and opportunity and access that they wouldn't have had before by playing. So talk to me a little bit about the combine that you guys are putting together and having come up in the next couple days.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. So friends of mine guys at About You, George Linus and Alex Combs at About You. About You is a Queens-based not-for-profit that is really focused and has been for the last 2 years, really focused on physical training of kids, academic training of kids, and SAT prep. And all of that kind of funnels into career, thinking about your career and getting internships at companies and getting these kids that are not going to play pro ball, but hopefully can get themselves in a position to get a scholarship and get a college education for free, get them into the workforce. So these guys came up with the idea, and they reached out to their friends at the Harlem Jets, Jamel Wright at the Harlem Jets. The Harlem Jets are probably the biggest youth program in New York City, youth football program. They have cheerleading, they have lacrosse, and grown into other sports as well. And the Harlem Jets are huge and a tremendous organization. So they partnered together. We were lucky enough to partner with them as well to be like the media component, the film component, and the distribution outlet to help get film out on all these kids. So the concept is we are going to have 300 of the top New York City football players. And we may very well be expanding to other sports. We're starting with football. And the problem here is that New York City canceled all football due to COVID this fall. So we've got, generation of that are losing a year of film. Now, it's obviously critical to the seniors, super critical to the juniors as well, the 11th graders, and 8th and 10th and 9th graders are losing film and, development as well. But more than that, they're losing the opportunity to have something positive to do for 20 to 25 hours a week, every week. And what's going to fill that void? So there's a real inequity gap here, which we are all motivated to try to help close and address in just at least a small degree. So we invited 300 of the top football kids, all different high schools, all across the 5 boroughs. And we are also bringing some Westchester kids in as well. The venue is going to be Archbishop Stepinac High School, which is a Catholic school in White Plains. Those guys have been fantastic, and they've partnered on this also. They have a great facility there, beautiful field, beautiful school. And we are going to bring kids there, 100% COVID protocols, staggered in smaller groups. Kids will be in pods, and every kid will do positional workout drills. Kids will be wearing masks during their drills, I would like to point out. Masks 100% of the time. They're not long drills. They're short bursts, so no one's going to faint for lack of oxygen. But kids will go through NFL-style combine drills. We're going to have like 5, 6 cameras there capturing every kid's reps. And then we are going to deliver that film to the kids on our app PlayerPager. They will put that on their recruiting resume under their moves. And we have over 100 colleges agreed to participate. There will be a virtual, a live link for a live stream. They can watch the live stream. They can watch the archived live stream. And they will also get access to all of our film, which will be close personal cut-ups of each kid going through his reps, including some one-on-ones. So this is hopefully going to fill of the games that these kids lost, because these are pre-vetted kids. We will, be able to, show colleges what their GPAs are to make sure that they're qualified for scholarships, and be able to show how they move. They can prove their moves to college coaches, show their athleticism. So we feel like this is, a win across the board. Colleges are very interested and excited about this because they feel like there's untapped talent here this year because they can't visit. As I said before, there's a dead period until at least January 1st. It's probably going to extend, where the NCAA is not allowing its coaches to go in person to see kids. So with no film, no games in New York, and no ability to visit kids can't get recruited. So, you're talking about a lot of the rest of the country, these regions are playing sports. So if you're a college coach, are you going to take a kid that has game film, or are you going to take a kid that doesn't? You're obviously going to take a kid that you have film on. There's just more data to make your assessments on. So we're trying to help close that gap by getting film to colleges and help kids that we think are, deserving and vetted by their high school head coaches that have been nominating them, get them an opportunity to get exposure and, hopefully have the chance to change the trajectory of their family if they can go to college. And a lot of these kids are first person in their family to ever go to college. So we're really excited about it. A lot of moving parts. as you can imagine. But I'm sure there'll be some kinks. But we will work it out. We'll make everything happen. And there's already plans. We're getting calls from Boston. They want to do one. We're talking about doing one in Northern California. California's not playing as well. We're going to do another one in the spring, a bigger one here as well. So great people, great intention, and we think we're going to get some great football players out there and get some film. Hopefully, get some kids some scholarships.
That is amazing, man. I just think it's such a cool way of going about it too. Obviously, again, going from, watching some of these New York City kids and their stories to then saying, hey, well, there's a huge market here to allow them to market themselves. And now being, again, just because, for lack of a better term, I always try and take advantage of bad situations, right? We can sit at home, we can do nothing, or we can go out and try and change the world a little bit. And that seems like that's
Mm-hmm.
what you're trying to do, one kid at a time, of course. But it sounds like if you're going to be able to, and yes, there will be kinks. Like, let's be very honest, you're dealing with 18-year-old kids. Like, come on, if there's not
Yeah.
kinks, you didn't do enough. But the opportunity to help them get some of that film, help them. As you said, I think the important part is that, they're not playing sports that's 25 hours a week. I was 18 once. I'm not going to say some of the shit I did, but I was 18 once. I know, Adam, you were
Yeah.
as well. So, we did some stuff. So, I think it's just important that, if there's that opportunity to get them that scholarship, and yes, this is just going to be an unfortunate situation for so many kids in New York City and all around the country, of course. But if there's still that opportunity to help them, as you said, and then potentially start to go around the country a little bit and do what you need to do there, I think it's absolutely incredible. And again, kudos to you guys for being able to put this together. Thank you for taking time. I'm sure Monday you have a lot of stuff on your calendar. I know you're peaking right now in the middle of this show, so we do appreciate it again. And hopefully I can help get the word out a little bit more. But is there a website people can go to find out a little bit more information? Is there, is it only for kids in New York City, or is it the surrounding area? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So it's invite only because, we have familiarity in these spaces and you get flooded with people just, registering. So we want to try to vet the kids. And so what we've done is we've gone to the head coaches of all these programs, which all of us have great relationships with. They've kind of nominated their top kids. George at About You, not myself, reviews the film and assesses who should get invited. But I'm happy to keep myself out of that process. I'm just a good guy here capturing film and helping the kids. So, but yeah, they can search. Twitter is the primary method of communication there. So at showcase_V, because it's called the Elite 5 Showcase, 5 being 5 boroughs. I think we're going to do some top 5 awards for each position as well to kind of fold that in. It's predominantly New York City kids. There were certainly some Westchester kids, kind of the Catholic school. There's the public school football league and there's a Catholic school football league. There are some Catholic school football league teams that play in the city. And then there's some teams that play in Westchester and Long Island. So we've kind of circled some of those schools in as well, just because they're in that same world. Mm-hmm. I keep talking about football, but just to be clear, our app PlayerPager is all sports. We are, Morgan's a basketball person. Coach Rika's a soccer person. We're bringing baseball people on. So what we like to say is we're sport agnostic as far as our mentorship videos, max potential videos, and about what the player can do on that. Sometimes, we talk in terms of one sport versus another, but we are sport agnostic. So, we believe we can provide the same value to any athlete, whether it's a girl who plays golf in high school in Indiana, or a boy who plays basketball in Portland. So, Elite 5 Showcase on Twitter. You can obviously also hit up PlayerPager, player_pager at Twitter, and PlayerPager on Instagram as well.
I love it. And I'll make sure to have all of those links for people to go ahead and follow those. I'll also have a link to download the app, which you can get right on your phone, of course. Where else are you going to get it? And I just want to point one last thing out before we do leave. I think one thing that you did that might seem underrated, but is extremely important, is for any of these kids that are on the app and they have they're showing their moves and they have their film, they have their resume, they can share their page specifically with any of these coaches or really anybody. And you don't have to have the app to view the page. I know it sounds simple, and I know it sounds like, Michael, why did you bring that up? Who cares? If there's less barrier to see something, more people are going to see it. If you're going to say, here, look at my page, and then it says, oh, you have to download this app, so many people are going to say, no, I'm not going to download that app. But if you say, hey, look at my page, here it is, and you can just click a link and you can see the entire thing and you can see everything that it has to offer. I think that, especially as a fledgling company, as a new company that's doing something, well, it sounds so simple and so kind of like, why are you bringing this up? I think, especially, again, who are we dealing with? We're dealing with 17-year-old kids and we're dealing with 45-year-old coaches. Very huge gap there. Yes, they both understand each other a little bit, but that's because they have to, probably not because they want to. So I think that that part is pretty important. I just think, again, I wanted to plug that in there. So I will have links to download the application. I will have all those social links. I'll have the websites and anything else that Adam would like me to share. But man, this was awesome. I think we covered just about everything, right?
I think so.
We did a pretty darn
Fantastic.
good job. I think we did a pretty darn good job. So make sure to go follow Adam on everything. Actually, where can we follow you personally?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. I am Adam Salazar 27. I'm sorry, Adam Salazar 27, and on Twitter I am Adam Salazar. You know what? I'm really not good on Twitter. I
I'm
don't
gonna
even know
get
my
those links. Just send
Twitter
me
as
the
a
links.
model. Yeah,
Just send me the links. That's perfect.
terrible,
Awesome. Thank
terrible.
you,
I focus
everybody.
on the PlayerPager links handles, not my own.
Build that brand. You did a
Yes,
pretty good job with
exactly.
your indie films, and Adam is actually going to be sending me his indie film that never got released or
That's
kind of
correct.
released. So very
That's
excited for
correct.
that. But no, Adam, sincerely, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Michael. Absolute pleasure.
Appreciate it. All right.